The Honest Fisherman. In a small coastal village, there lived a humble fisherman named Samir. Every day, he would go out to the sea in his simple boat, casting his nets and hoping for a good catch. Though he never caught much, Samir was content with what he had, always sharing his small harvest with those in need. One day, while fishing near the deep waters, Samir's net caught something heavy. He pulled and pulled, expecting a large fish, but instead, he found a golden fish shimmering in his net. The fish looked at him with sparkling eyes and said, "Please, let me go, and I will grant you a wish." Samir, though amazed by the talking fish, thought carefully before speaking. He did not wish for riches or power, but instead said, "I only wish for enough to provide for my family and my village." The golden fish smiled and said, "Your wish is granted," before slipping back into the water. The next day, when Samir returned to the sea, his nets were filled with fish of all kinds. For the first time, he had more fish than he could carry, and he returned to the village with a bountiful catch. Samir shared his good fortune with his family and neighbors, giving freely to those who needed it. As the days passed, Samir's catches continued to grow, and soon, the entire village prospered. Everyone was well-fed, and no one went hungry. Samir became known as the most generous man in the village. Despite his newfound abundance, Samir remained humble and grateful. One day, news of Samir's prosperity reached the ears of a greedy merchant named Rakesh. Rakesh was known for his wealth, but also for his selfishness, always seeking more than he needed. When he heard about the golden fish, he decided to try his luck and set off for the sea. Rakesh sailed to the same waters where Samir had caught the golden fish. He cast his net repeatedly, determined to find the magical fish and make his own wish. After hours of waiting, Rakesh's net finally caught something, and to his delight, it was the golden fish. The golden fish, just as it had done with Samir, spoke to Rakesh. "Please let me go, and I will grant you a wish," it said. But unlike Samir, Rakesh didn't hesitate. "I wish for endless riches and gold," he demanded. The golden fish looked sad but said, "Your wish is granted," before swimming away. When Rakesh returned home, he found his mansion overflowing with gold and treasures. He laughed with delight, imagining all the wealth he could use to grow even more powerful. But the more riches he gained, the more greedy and paranoid he became. Soon, Rakesh's greed knew no bounds, and he began hoarding his wealth, refusing to share it with anyone. He hired guards to protect his treasure and built higher walls around his mansion to keep everyone out. But despite his riches, Rakesh felt more isolated and empty than ever before. Meanwhile, Samir continued his life of simple happiness, sharing his blessings with the village. The villagers loved and respected him, and the community thrived thanks to Samir's generosity. Samir never envied Rakesh's wealth, for he knew true happiness came from giving and living honestly. One day, as Rakesh sat counting his gold, a storm suddenly struck the village. The sea roared, and fierce winds blew, threatening the village and its people. Rakesh, fearful for his treasures, locked himself in his mansion, while Samir rushed to help the villagers. Samir gathered the villagers and led them to safety, protecting them from the storm's wrath. Though his boat and some of his nets were damaged, Samir was more concerned with the people than his possessions. Thanks to his selflessness, everyone in the village survived the storm unharmed. After the storm passed, the village was in ruins, but the people were safe. Samir, with the help of the villagers, began to rebuild the homes and restore the village. Despite losing much of his livelihood, Samir was content knowing he had saved lives. Rakesh, however, was not so lucky. His mansion, though heavily fortified, was damaged by the storm. The water had flooded his vaults, and much of his gold and treasures were washed away into the sea. As he searched through the wreckage, Rakesh realized that his greed had brought him nothing but loss. Desperate, Rakesh returned to the sea, hoping to find the golden fish once more and wish for his fortune back. He sailed to the same waters, casting his net over and over, but the golden fish did not appear. For days, Rakesh waited, but his wish was never granted again. As Rakesh's wealth dwindled, he was left with nothing but regret and loneliness. He realized too late that his greed had driven away the very people who could have supported him. With no friends or family, Rakesh's once grand life was reduced to emptiness. Meanwhile, Samir and the villagers rebuilt their homes and lives, stronger and closer than before. They helped each other recover from the storm, and Samir's kindness continued to inspire all who knew him. Though his wealth was simple, Samir lived a rich life full of love, friendship, and respect. As time passed, Rakesh's story became a cautionary tale of greed and loneliness. The villagers would tell their children about the greedy merchant who lost everything because he desired too much. In contrast, Samir's story of honesty and generosity lived on as an example of how true wealth comes from the heart. In the end, Samir's life became a testament to the power of kindness and humility. Though he never sought riches, he became the wealthiest man in the village, rich in love, respect, and happiness. His legacy was not one of gold, but of a heart that touched every life around him. Moral of the story: true wealth does not lie in gold or treasures, but in kindness, honesty, and generosity. Those who give freely from the heart will always find themselves rich in the ways that matter most.